panelists, and we can begin the panel shortly.
Thank you. Yes, welcome back, everyone. So for once, I'm quite confident the technology will work, but I'm not so confident about my voice continuing. But I will do my best. Um, so, our first presenter is Dr. Michael O'Connell. Um, Often working under the pseudonym Moxim, Michal's artistic practice involves interference with everyday functional processes, misuse, misunderstanding, lampooning, and tinkering with technological systems. These range from photographic, surveillance, bureaucratic, and digital systems to heavier infrastructures like transport networks. His practice-led doctorate, Art as Artificial Stupidity, 2016, explored these strategies, which were also the focus of John Roberts' book, Art, Misuse and Technology, Michael O'Connell's System Interference, 2022, published alongside his touring exhibition of the same name. Writing and meaning-makings stem from four overlapping areas of experience: fine art, post-conceptual practice, industry work in mathematical modelling, coding and simulation, political economy and activism, and dramaturgical approaches, particularly comedy. He is Associate Professor and Head of Creative and Critical Practice within the MEH faculty at the University of Sussex. And Michal's going to talk about artificial stupidity and resistance after AI, the need to be understood. So, Michal.
Okay, I'll just share my desktop here, and I will open my materials. Give me 1 second. Thanks for the introduction, and hello, everyone. I did attend this morning and was intrigued by what people are saying, and it does fit with my general area of practice and research. So I'm going to try and be coherent and deal with sort of what are very complex issues, I suppose, in some ways, as well as being simple in others. In order to prepare for this presentation, I'm presuming that you can see the slides okay.
Just one moment, Mia. We see the presenter view and not the slideshow view. Just so you know.
Okay. Let's move back. Stop sharing. Share. Desktop 2. Yeah. Okay. How's that?
Great, thank
That's
you.
working.
So, hopefully there wasn't anything too revealing on the presenter view, but I'll find out afterwards, I guess, if there was. But and maybe actually as a point of note, I think it's interesting always to be aware of how dysfunctional technologies have been historically, the glitches, the faults, and I don't see any reason why we should expect different from what are seen to be more sophisticated LLMs and AI tools. That's not to say that they don't change the situation and to some degree, arguably improve conditions, but they also always have what you could see as design faults. So simply discovering those in itself is revealing and quite interesting. And in the paper I referred to in the summary of this presentation by Bernard Stiegler, he points to one or two interesting examples. So what I decided to do in order to prepare for this presentation was to ask ChatGPT and DeepSeek, the kind of Chinese equivalent of the Western oriented ChatGPT, the same question. I asked them to create 3, 4, or 5 slides and kind of some notes, a 15-minute presentation based on the summary, which has just been read out by Ashling. Thank you. And it came up with, so I put in red the answers that ChatGPT gave me. I've put in green the answers that DeepSeek gave me, and as it happens, there wasn't much difference with all the slides. If I cycle through them, there wasn't a great difference. And as always with any kind of LLM, which is always a changing and shifting landscape, you've got to pay attention to what it's spitting out, do a lot of work afterwards, check any facts, and wonder about the nuances actually, because the slightest change in sentences, wording can move its meaning in a direction that maybe you, as a human trying to communicate with other humans, don't want. So the two came up with something very similar, and it's funny because I've had some experiences recently, and I'd just like to share this with you because I'm writing. I'm trying to finish a book on these kinds of subjects. But let me just share something with you. I was just experimenting actually with DeepSeek as well as ChatGPT recently. And I'm going to share instead this. You may not be able to read the text here, but if so, that doesn't necessarily matter. So I've been writing something about the use of the Chinese state of AI to help detect Uyghur Muslims. And as we kind of may be aware, it's sort of the attention on this seems to have died down in the last 3 or 4 years. But for a year or two, there was a lot of discussion around what's taking place in a particular area in China and the way that the people there are being treated by the apparatus at the moment. So I'd written a few paragraphs unpicking and interrogating the use of AI tools and the kind of ridiculousness of the attempts to use these tools, which is not to dismiss the oppression of Uyghur Muslims in China, which is terrible. You know, you're talking about a million people have been sort of picked up. There's cotton production involved with slave labor and re-education camps and so on. So I'd written a few paragraphs, just very carefully researched paragraphs, substantiated and well researched in my view, and I fed it in to DeepSeek and asked it to summarize what the paragraphs had written. And I was able to summarize what I'd written quite well. But then I asked it to analyze the two paragraphs uploaded. So I'm just going to play this because I managed to capture this on my camera and it was necessary to do so. So I asked DeepSeek to analyze what I'd written in more detail. And it really goes to town, as is the habit of these LLMs. It produces so much information, far more than I'd actually written myself. It gives an overall summary, analyzes the first paragraph, the architecture of repression. It talks about the thesis itself, the consequences, and the need for action against it. Then it talks about the cover up by the state and the complicity by various organizations and tech companies, how religion's being erased, political conformities being imposed, and so on. So this is what you're seeing is DeepSeek analyzing my two paragraphs. And I'm just going to pause it there for a second. So then also there's a synthesis and make some connections. Lovely, lovely summary at the end of that. And there you have quite a lot of information produced by DeepSeek based on my two paragraphs. I'm just going to play a little bit more. The whole lot disappears a few seconds later. And it says, sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. And then when I interrogate that further, it says no, it was just a technical error. This was not, and I sort of suggest there might be an Orwellian kind of tension here between the LLM's need, on the one hand, to be able to be open and to provide people like me with what I want, and secondly, a censorious state. And I'm not actually suggesting here that the Western models are necessarily hugely different because let me just share this again. In one sense, it's just a different set of ethics. Yeah, let's not compare too much right now. But you know, if you're trying to investigate certain kinds of material via ChatGPT, it will get censored. On a very basic level, I'm just thinking of things like free the nipple campaigns and so on, and the kind of way the algorithm works and the peculiarities of that. So let's get back to the content here, and please stop me if I digress too much. But I thought it was interesting to ask both tools. So they point to the fact that Bernard Stiegler, who's, a very important, obviously you probably heard of him, some may not, a French philosopher who died in 2000, or departed in 2020, and was doing a lot of work around the development of AI. He did a lecture in 2017, which included the term artificial stupidity. And his kind of point here was that really, firstly, he's making a kind of an intellectual point, really, that intelligence, or what we call intelligence, human intelligence, let's say, has always been artificial. And what he means by that, I mean, there's a term that he uses, exosomatization, which refers to the fact that our intelligence really has and is extended. If you think of libraries, for example, and many of the tools that we've invented over centuries and thousands of years, which preempt computational technologies, right? Writing itself, which was a controversial issue apparently for Plato, and referring in turn to Socrates, the idea of writing, the idea that writing. So Stiegler's concern is that exosomatized intelligence is always part of the equation. It's not something that's changed. For example, I might suggest that this morning when I went to brush my teeth, I kind of knew where the toothpaste was. It stays in a particular place, and I just reach out and get it. It's sort of unconscious, let us say, but the bathroom itself and the place that's located, it's a muscle memory activity. It's not something I'm literally consciously remembering. So even the physical landscape around us and the artifacts that we create constitute a kind of aspect of this exosomatization. Stiegler's worry and his negative concern is that with AI, certain aspects of this are accelerated. Stiegler is interested in the idea of the pharmacon, which I believe he got from Derrida. That everything is both a cure and a poison. And if it goes too far in one direction, we may become stupefied by the accelerating technologies about us. AI is an extension of this process of exosomatization, and he's very interested in the word entropy, which has its origins in, well, physical chemistry, thermodynamics, and science, really. And he's using it actually in a figurative way. Entropy is a suggestion that you get, well, the term that's often used is an increased disorder. But what's really meant is that distinction disappears, difference is destroyed, and that everything sort of melds into nothingness and evenness. And his interest really is that what we as humans maybe need to concern ourselves with, or thinking people, is negentropy, fighting that. And this possibility isn't new, this kind of worry about entropy and the way it's used. It was first raised by Norbert Wiener in 1948, who was one of the original cybernetics gurus. And cybernetics is also a form of systems thinking, the idea of feedback loops, that human beings push into the world about us and it feeds back onto us. But if we're not careful, and the phrase Norbert Wiener used, there's also the possibility that such a mechanism becomes an extremely controlling and dead system where we lose our ability as human beings to think and to imagine and to distinguish. I mean, Norbert Wiener's phrase was actually the danger of us becoming a fascist ant state. I mean, I presume that ant colonies are operating in a very efficient and suitable way in terms of ant colonies, but for the ants themselves, is that kind of what we want for humans? So how do we operate in this kind of situation? I've had a lot of conversations with John Roberts recently, who's a philosopher of aesthetics at Wolverhampton. He's written many books that are picked up by artists. He's interested in the avant-garde, the political nature of artistic practice, but not just in the most common way that people understand that. Not just in terms of I'm an art activist, and obviously that's become extremely common and popular in recent years. But John Roberts is also interested in the idea that how should you operate? This question, how should uh, us, people who are practicing artists, thinkers, who are also very knowledgeable about how technology and algorithms work, how should we how should we deal with this situation? There's a whole range of dangers. At one extreme, you've got a kind of Luddite sort of approach, a late romantic anti-technologism. In other words, we're against it. And I sense with students and so on and young people that there's a big amount of that, a kind of a very sort of blatant hostility to, let's say, AI, as there was for other tools in recent history, which came along, even Wikipedia and the Google search engine, and when Word documents also had thesaurus built in and dictionaries built in, and Grammarly came along. All of that is kind of preemptive of some of what you can do now with the LLMs. But being completely anti it is one extreme. You're sort of you're literally fighting the machines and shouting at the computer. The other extreme, I guess, is a kind of an accelerationist embracing of everything new, and that could go in two ways. One is new technology is going to solve all our problems, and it's kind of magic, the tech bro kind of attitude of one sort. And then the other extreme is robot Armageddons, and this thing is going to destroy us and kill us and and is ruining the planet, and it's going to kind of literally go on the attack. As if, by the way, AI isn't already being used for military purposes. And we can think of parts of the planet right now, and I'm not going to list them, where very consciously AI, artificial intelligence, and artificial stupidity is in operation. So, and in the middle, you've probably got maker mentality, which I see as similar to kind of post-digital mentality, which is, well, technology is another set of tools in the box. Isn't it wonderful? We can use it in all these different ways with 3D scanning, printing, VR headsets, and you can do creative things and so on. So I think it's very hard to work out exactly what the remit is, or what the job is really for people like us. So John Roberts has been paying attention to this, and there's dangers obviously in over theorizing and sort of wagging your finger in a kind of more in a modernist way and saying this is what artists need to be doing now. Here we are. I mean, before I continue, how much time have I got left? Could someone give me just a
You've
Justin,
talked for,
were you t
oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead, Justin.
No, you go.
You've talked for about 16 minutes now?
Okay, I've overdone it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
In which case, I can show one piece of practice and then just pose a question and leave it there. It might take me 2 more minutes. Is that acceptable?
Of course.
Okay, let me open something up here. Bang. So, I mean, this is the complete opposite of the question I'm about to pose, because I've posed a question in the title of this presentation, which um, is there a logic to trying to hide and not reveal the truth, and to kind of wear masks and so on? I mean, we could think of this kind of literal wearing of masks or other ways of being evasive. But here's a piece of practice work. It's about a minute long. I'll just play it. Um, I'm going to stop here for a second so this is the security cameras uh, and the screen that shows all the different security cameras in a five-story white cube kind of art space. And I simply, I realized that at the front of the building, there was a camera that was moving, and you could, beneath the kind of dark shaded plastic cover, see which direction it was pointing in. So I simply made an attempt to stay in the frame. So you can see me here running out the door of the gallery on one of the cameras, and I'll just play it onwards. So that's a complete opposite to the question, in a sense, in terms of what its meaning is, to the question I'm just going to leave you with. So that was an attempt to kind of over engage, really. As I said, I've done work with technology, including heavier infrastructures. I'm interested in the road network and its relationship with packet switching and the digital network, and various other kind of projects. So basically, the question is to be understood, to be controlled? Is there a validity to obscurity, to difficulty, to coded forms of communication as part of resistance? Historically, the avant-garde and sort of complex writing played this kind of role. But for activists, let's say, trade unionists, old-fashioned kinds of, let's say, protest and political movements, which I personally believe are still important. There's always this tension of, on the one hand, needing to communicate with each other and have democratic processes, but simultaneously not wanting to let the power that you're confronting know. And I think there's a conundrum and difficulty there that may be accelerated and increased because of the levels of engagement we now have with the digital infrastructure, which counts both as tools that we need to use to kind of function in the world and simultaneously is operating as a surveillance mechanism. I'm going to stop at that point.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Fantastic. So, that was really, really fascinating. I have made some notes of some questions. Reminder to everyone, can you put any questions you have in the Q&A, and we will have the question session after Retno has presented. So yes, so now we go to Retno Larasati, she, her. So Retno is a postdoc research associate in artificial intelligence working with the Shifting Power Group at the Knowledge Media Institute in the Open University. Her previous work included trust in AI, especially AI in healthcare for non-expert users. And Retno is going to talk to us about what comes after AI trust. So, Retno.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Today I want to talk about something that we all use daily, but rarely ponder deeply, which is trust in technology, specifically artificial intelligence. For many of us, using AI tools such as search engines, translation apps, or navigation such as Google Maps is second in nature, and we rely on them without questioning the underlying mechanism of it. And trust in this context has been often seen as invisible and background condition of modern life. But as I delved into this topic during my PhD, I realized that trust is far from passive or static. It's an active and complex psychological process. So first I want to ask, what is trust? Traditionally, trust has been defined across philosophy, psychology, and sociology as reliance, expectation, or a way to reduce complexity. Philosophically, trust is fundamentally about reliance on another's goodwill, as Bayer articulated in 1986. And from psychological standpoint, it's about our expectancy that someone or something can be relied upon, an expectation we often form based on past experiences. And sociologically, trust plays a crucial role in simplifying our complex world, and it allows us to navigate uncertainty. While academics often categorize trust into attitude, the factors that influence trust and the behavior that result from it, like again reliance and compliance, I believe these are deeply interconnected. And for the purpose of this presentation, I'll be discussing trust holistically. So it's an attitude, but also the behavior that is related to trust. So it trust that encompassing all of these facets. And when I refer to AI, I'm using it as a broad umbrella term as well, and covering everything from sophisticated machine learning to robotic system maybe, and or even simpler statistical models and automated tools that we interact daily. And moving from this broad definition, foundational work that become crucial lens for my research is that the integrative model of organizational trust by Mayer, Davis, and Skurman in 1995. And it's basically a core pillar that translates to human AI interaction. And they identified three key factors of trust. First is ability. So does the system performs its function competently? So think about Google Maps. I trust it because its direction have consistently proven correct over time. Unlike some frustrating experience I've had with, for example, Apple Maps. And this aligned perfectly with another work by Muir, which is trust in automation, that basically we calibrate trust through observed reliability. And the second trust factor is integrity. So does the AI consistently adhere to expected principles? Is it predictable in its behavior? And then the third one is benevolence. So this is where it gets particularly interesting. In human terms, benevolence implies goodwill in acting in another interest. But for AI, I believe it lacks true intentionality. Therefore, AI benevolence is not inherent trait, but rather a design artifact. It's about how it's programmed and intended to function, but maybe more than that. However, I believe it's not a genuine internal state. Expanding on this, Lee and C, 2004 work, further explained that trust in automation is a blend of dispositional, situational, and learned components. But beyond these trust models, like there are a lot of research about this trust model and different trust models. I think it's crucial to acknowledge the interplay between our rational and emotional responses when we're forming trust. And a meta-analysis by Schumann et al. In 2012 and Schaffer et al. In 2016 clearly showed that trust is influenced both cognitively and affectively. Cognitive trust is our rational assessment of AI capabilities. So we logically understand and believe in its function, its capability. And meanwhile, affective trust is about emotional comfort or how we feel about the system. And here's the crucial point is that humans are not purely rational beings. Our trust formation is heavily influenced by cues and beyond pure logic. Think about how sleek interface or powerful branding can subtly lead us into believing in system that this one is more trustworthy or not. Even the appearance of prestigious institutional logo can increase perceived trustworthiness, regardless of the underlying technology or actual performance. With AI, this basically the dichotomy of this cognitive and affective trust factors becomes particularly salient. We might cognitively understand that an AI recommendations are just statistical calculation, yet our personal and emotional experience with that system can profoundly affect our level of trust, and this can override our rational understanding. This is where the initial seeds of unquestioning faith begin to sprout. Again, for example, empathy can be simulated by AI, making us trust it more. And then it's attachment that born from habitual use that can truly cement our reliance. my writing software, for example, predicting my next word, and it's always correct. And like, for example, my smart home device, like Alexa, responding to my command and always help me. And this small repeated interaction foster this uncritical dependence. And this could lead us to faith, trusting despite incomplete information, moving beyond rationality. And when people follow, for example, AI diagnostic advice that they cannot validate, they still think that and we can still trust the algorithmic risk assessment, even though they don't understand it. And this is where we exercise technological faith. We surrender to convenience, and even though we don't understand it. And talk about faith in AI. What I meant in here is that I'm not talking about the actual AI religion in a traditional sense or traditional religions that usage of AI. Even though now we have a lot of those, like for example, these TikTok accounts that have 40,000 followers that basically seeing ChatGPT as a divine entity. I want to talk about how people trusting AI now and the parallels between our interaction with AI and religious faith. And these parallels are quite striking, especially as someone who is subscribing to a religion. So people confiding in ChatGPT as therapists, claiming it doesn't judge, claiming it understands. It's just like when we whisper our sins to the saints. Or it search for absolution from something that we cannot truly hear. We see a tech leader acting as prophets, spreading salvation myth about AI will cure any diseases, cancer, solving climate change, solving our world problems. But then also there, for every Messiah narrative, there also apocalyptic narrative, the doomsday. And we're talking about how the narrative of AI is going to destroy humanity. And this is much like the duality in ancient religions. And our daily interaction with AI become rituals, slowly rewiring our cognition through interpretative drift and fostering attachment and familiarity. And this can form AI tribes, cults, quasi-religions, etc. Like, for example, transhumanists, AI enthusiasts, or even theological debates over what is sacred in the age of AI, like maybe the soul of the arts or the copyright. And this societal engagement with AI, again, reminiscence of religious dynamic and the search for meaning, is further amplified and shaped by the narrative we consume. And in here, the example, the modern prophets of AI, such as Elon Musk and Sam Altman, saying that AI could kill us all and the civilization destruction. And this sacred text was spread by mainstream media and etc. And even like in his blog post, Sam Altman once wrote that successful people create companies, more successful people create countries, and the most successful people create religions. And again, talking about a narrative and the search of its meaning and further the narrative that we consume, it is through the lens of science fiction in particular that this complex interaction and potential futures can be explored. I think science fiction is not just entertainment, but it's also a powerful tool for world building and shape our perception of AI before we even encounter it. It allows us to pre-visualize and critically explore the potential societal impacts, ethical dilemmas, and the evolution of human AI trust. For example, the first example that I want to talk about is Wall-E. This 2008 movie. In this movie, we see a chilling dystopian society where humanity has completely surrendered to AI. They even lose their ability to stand, to question, and to make decision. The AI in this universe called Auto is not malicious in a sense, but the humans' unquestioning reliance leads to their atrophy, both physical and intellectual. And the society's trust is ritualized and not reasoned. And this is illustrate the consequence of collective unquestioning faith in AI, showing how societal atrophy and erosion of human agency can be direct outcomes of abdicated trust in AI-dominated future. Another example is Black Mirror's Hang the DJ. I don't know if you know this, but in this episode, basically the main characters, Amy and Frank, are the first to join the system, quote unquote, which is an isolated society built to find their perfect match. And in this system, people are matched into relationships according to algorithms, and they are carrying a dating assistant called Coach. The catch is system not only matches people, but it also determines some part of relationships, such as the meals that they eat during their day. And the dystopian angle of this episode is that the system also determines how long the relationship will last, called the expiry date. So the algorithm will calculate and see like, okay, it could be 12 hours relationship, or it's going to be 5 years relationship. And during this time of this period of relationships, the matched couple will cohabitate in a house provided by the system. And the system users, such as, for example, Amy and Frank here, they trust this matchmaking algorithm with no knowledge of how and why it's assigned relationship to the expired time. And Koch claimed that the system gains insight as each participant progresses through numerous relationships and uses the gathered data to eventually select an ultimate compatible other. But what is the data? What is the ultimate compatible? How can something intangible, such as love, be calculated as if it's a tangible thing? However, again, in this episode, they still follow and rely on this algorithm and trusting the algorithm to have the right way. Even though in the end, people that are watching are confronted by uncomfortable choices that the character choose, why are they still following the system or coach and that tell them what to do? Even in some part, when coach is not showing how incompetent they are, like for example, should I go at it? And the coach reply, define go at it. So the system is not that smart. However, the people in here still trusting it. This is again example of unquestionable faith. So tech companies are basically actively engineering this faith, from the slide pause before Alexa responds to chatbots that responds with a lot of emoji. They design AI to echoing, mirroring human behaviors, training us to treat machines as partners. And this culminates in what we call again faith in AI or AI faith. And because of this, we can forgive AI errors and biases and continue to engage even when it's flawed. Think about how many people trust ChatGPT for therapy despite its generic advice. We outsource our judgment, leading to diminished memory, and then reduce information retention, which already got worse because of Google, and impaired our critical thinking skills. Again, the Google effect is the precursor, and now with generative AI and LLM, we risk losing our cognitive abilities even more, and maybe even our moral compass. The phrase "adapt or die" pushes us further into this reliance. Lastly, I think I'm just going to go fast with this. So what does trust after AI truly mean? I think it means understanding that this isn't about just machine themselves, but it's also about us, about humanity. And the challenge is to reclaim our agency and to understand that trust, what is trust, what causes trust, what influence our trust, and then avoid both blind faith and cynical rejection. I think it's about staying present in ambiguity and recognizing the tools for what they are, which is tools. And I think, yeah, let's not calcify trust into complacency. Thank you.